Hi, Jen.
Hey James, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm just pulling the Matsu Man link up right now. Putting it in the chat.
It's a fun link.
So I have a question. I don't recall in the book, does it say his name's Andy Moore?
Uh, I don't remember actually.
Because I was just scrolling through the page and I was like, oh, Andy Moore's his name? But I don't remember reading that.
Yeah. Does it say that on the website?
At the very bottom.
Yeah, maybe that's his name. I don't know.
Well, now I want to send you this in the chat bar to make sure this is the right website
Let's
before I
let's
post it live in the chat. So hold on, let me put it in the chat right now.
sure.
Here we go. Okay, see if you got that.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess that is his name.
Okay. Well, good to know. I don't remember reading it, but that doesn't mean it wasn't there.
Yeah. Looks like Cindy's maybe having connection issues.
Yeah, it looks it.
Is Jaime not here?
I just joined. Hold on.
Okay.
I'm letting him in now.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Jaime. 77, 76, 276.
Are we continuing where we left off last time?
Yeah, it's 276.
Perfect. I am there.
Cool.
And then do you have your mushroom time lapse?
I do. I didn't get to use the one from last time, so
Oh, that's right.
I still have it loaded up somewhere. Here we go.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Minimize everything else.
Outlook.
We'll do a test.
Yep.
There's that.
Looks good.
Okay, and there is that. I forgot, if I full screen it now, will you still see it?
Yeah.
That looks beautiful.
Cool.
Okay.
Alrighty. It looks as though there's only 3 people in the waiting room at the moment. Hi guys.
Hey, Cindy. I think your phone is still here or whatever the other thing is.
I can't log on with that, but I'm at a safe spot now, so
Cool.
I'm home.
Jen, kick the fake Cindy out. I'm just
I don't know. If I do that, I might like block the real
yeah,
one.
no, yeah, it's kind of risky.
I think I threw myself out of my
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
All right. I got the list, Jen. Thank you.
Okay, so should we let people in?
I guess, is Lauren still not here?
No, has anybody heard from her?
Just through the
Yeah,
Farm Lab app,
Okay,
she said she was gonna be here.
okay, then maybe we'll wait a couple more minutes.
Let's see what she say. She said, "We will miss you. I'll be there."
Oh, Jaime, I think you're muted.
She'll still have 15 minutes. And, right, after for 10 minutes? To
To let
join,
her
even
in.
if, even
Oh,
if we, I mean, if we let people in now, she could still come in a few
She
minutes.
could come
right?
in at 7:30 if she wanted, if we were still here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would, we would let her in.
Yeah, be like, no, those are the rules.
We'd let her in. Okay, so then she didn't say not to go, but give it a couple more minutes.
Oh, Cindy, I had a question for you.
Yes.
Do you know, is obviously we can't do it today, but for Monday, the courier service that we used to use for Wallace Labs, was that ran by like an independent courier, or was it like Wallace Labs's courier?
No, it's an independent. It's called a Quick Pick Messenger.
Okay, cool. I'll have to get the info from you so that I can do it myself, so I don't have to bother you for it, if that works.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'll ask for you that on Monday, so.
Okay.
You guys think we should start?
Done. Look it. I started it.
Wow.
Looks good.
I
Um,
started the actual bird and not just the leaves.
Jen, I think it's fine if we start.
Okay.
Maybe somebody maybe just send her a text now and start so that she has a reminder.
Oh yeah, she's on a different time zone.
Yeah,
I'll start letting people in.
cool.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Before we begin tonight's reading, we'll just go around and do quick introductions and share what we're working on. And actually, before I do that, let me start with the embroidery of the week. This week, and I don't think she's on here. Let me see. Nope, not yet. But this week's pattern is done by Lee Adams. And it's a older flower design, but what I really wanted to share with everyone was I don't know what the stitch is. I've been researching stitches lately, so we'll have to get her in the next couple weeks to figure out what stitch she used, particularly in the gold tones and the green. It's just absolutely beautiful. And then one thing that I wanted to share that I thought was so cool and so creative is that she probably will kill me for putting this out there, but her fabric got dirty in the making of this. And so there was a ring around this area. And so she just stitched this pattern around the circle to cover it up, which I thought was extra creative as well. So I will share with you what I'm working on. I am close to finishing the underground pattern. I'm on the details, the fine details now. So I see the finish line and I see another embroidery in my future. So I'm Jen. I'm calling from Studio City, and I use she, her pronouns, and I will pass it to Dee.
Hi everyone, Derainer Holland calling in from Baldwin Hills, California, and I am working on this hummingbird. Haven't gotten very far, but I'll be finished with it sooner than later. And I'm happy to be here, and I will pass it on to B.
Well, hi. I'm B. Jones, and I'm calling from Mid-City, Fairfax, Wilshire area. I'm in transit trying to get back home, and I go by she, her pronouns, and I'm really glad to get back to seeing you guys. And I don't know who all else is in, in the Zoom. So if Jen could help me with that, driving and talking,
Oh,
Zooming
course.
more than I can do.
Okay, I will pass it on to Marianne.
Hi, everyone. I'm in Silver Lake, and I use she, her pronouns. And I don't have a kit yet, so I'm not embroidering. I'm working on getting my second novel out into the world. That's what I've been working on. But as soon as I have a embroidery to do, I will do it. I'm very happy to be here with you all. And I pass it to Emily.
Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. Happy to be with you. Happy to see you, Marianne, from choir last night, and then to see you here today. And you too, Maria. Nice to see the crossover crew. I'm in Echo Park. I'm excited to be with you. I'm going to be listening and perhaps doing some cooking while we do the reading. So thanks for having me. And let me go ahead and pass it to Cynthia.
Hi, I'm Cindy. I'm calling in from West Covina, and I'm working on this bird that I actually started the bird and not the leaves only. So that's exciting for me. And I'm happy to be here as always. I will pass it on to Maria.
Did you say Maria? Yeah,
Yes.
thanks, Cindy. I'm Maria Karras. I live in Los Angeles near Highland Park. And today I am listening primarily because I have to do some things with my hands. But I may come back to doing some embroidery. I'm working on embroidering a silk screen I did at Metabolic Studios on Thursday night, probably 2 years ago, and I'm having fun with it. I'll show it to you later. Oh, and I'll pass it on to Beatrice. Have you gone yet, Beatrice? Yes.
Yeah, yes, I have.
Okay, Sylvia. I'll pass it on to Sylvia.
Okay, thanks. I'm Sylvia. I'm in Pasadena. I'm working on mending one of my favorite gardening shirts that's split down the back.
Woo!
So I chopped off some other fabric and putting it on the inside. Doesn't look bad so far. I will pass it to Rowena.
Hi, I'm Rowena. I'm in Mid-City, Los Angeles. I use she, her pronouns. My internet is a little spotty today, so I'm here, even though you can't see me. I will pass it to Derainer.
I've already gone, so maybe I don't think Jaime's gone yet.
Hey, I'm Jaime, calling in from the Owens Valley, Payahunabi. Use he, him pronouns. Tonight I'll be sharing the screen with the book and enjoying this last session with you guys. I'll pass it to Ansu.
Hi, how is everybody? I'm Ansu. I'm calling in from Silver Lake and go by she, her. And I got my thread that I need to finish my piece. So I'm really excited to embroider and sad that this is the last session of that lovely book. So who can I pass it on to that hasn't gone yet? Would somebody like to go? Because I have just joined.
We can pass it on to Lauren.
Lauren? Yes.
Hi, everybody. Lauren, I'm she, they pronouns calling from New York City, New York. I'm very happy to be with you tonight and looking forward to our next Learning and Mending cycle, which will begin in 2 weeks. We'll tell you more about that before the end of this evening. And I will pass it on to Roxanne. Or Alex Tanazi.
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm calling in from Mar Vista, Los Angeles. And tonight I'm going to be working on some plants. Maybe I'll share a little more if I get closer to finishing. And excited to hear the reading today and be with you all. And I will pass it to Roxanne. She's ready. If not, we will move to James. Would you like to go?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm James, he, him pronouns, calling in from downtown Los Angeles. And tonight I will be, as usual, reading and helping with some of the discussion for tonight. I'm very excited to finish up this lovely book and very thankful for everybody participating in this series. It's been awesome. I will pass it to Jen.
That sounds like a good plan. If you didn't have the opportunity to introduce yourself or share what you're working on, there will be time at the end of this reading. The Metabolic Studios Learning and Mending series is now in its 4th evolution. This time around, we're addressing disturbance ecology and what emerges in the blasted landscapes of capitalism. To do this, we'll be collectively reading Anna Tsing's The Mushroom at the End of the World on the possibility of life in capitalist ruins. Growing through the last 3 gatherings, the first learning syllabus in response to ongoing racial violence, particularly at the hands of the police, the second holding space for the mega fires that have consumed the West, and the third addressing the larger reality of suffocation and the need for us to revive our breath. In order to get a deeper understanding of these crises and how they are interconnected, we are building upon these readings in the last 3 series. Many of you have received embroidery kits from us of native plants representing the food and medicine the Metabolic Studio is cultivating. We are adding some new embroidery patterns. We have more native plants and birds available. The theme of all the embroideries we've been working towards is biocenosis, which is an association of diverse organisms forming a closely integrated community. If you haven't received an embroidery kit or you finished one and would like another one, please send your name and mailing address to info@metabolicstudio.org. We decided to close the Zoom space after the first 15 minutes of the reading to protect the flow and to keep a steady breath. These gatherings are being recorded through Zoom for archival purposes. We thank you for co-creating this opportunity to learn and to mend together during quarantine. Tonight, we'll conclude this book with chapter 20, From the Mushroom at the End of the World by Anna Tsing. This 10-week series focused solely on this one book, and our guiding question was what lives in the ruins we've made. Since the ongoing pandemic began, we have moved our weekly public studio practice to Zoom, where we've committed ourselves to learning and mending together. We invite you to receive these readings as a deep inhale, and we find that crafting together helps to receive these readings as a meditation. We will share a screen, and we encourage you to read a section of the text aloud with us. When there's a pause in the reading, please feel free to unmute yourself and begin where the last person left off. Silence is golden, and there is no pressure to fill the transitional spaces while we enjoy a breath and continue crafting. Feel free to jump in and continue reading at your comfort level. You don't have to read, it's also fine to enjoy listening. And now I will pass it back over to James.
Thank you, Jen. As usual, I'm just going to share some of the discussion questions before the reading. So here's the first one. What do you think about these edges of capitalism that Matsuman, Satayama revivalists, Finnish foragers, and Yunnan farmers live in? Some are beyond wage labor. Some seek to live in places that are neither owned or rented. And the second question is, Le Guin and Singh suggest that stories shouldn't end with protagonists conquering enemies, but should instead go on picking up the pieces like a foray for mushrooms in an endless and contagious curiosity. Do you feel this contagious curiosity? And how can we inspire others? And with that, Jaime, do you want to pull up the reading? Cool, thanks. Discovering allies. Yunnan. Zhao Mei admires a big mushroom, not Matsutake. Chapter 20. Anti-ending. Some people I met along the way. When I visited Matsuman in 2007, he was living in a small house on top of a hill with his girlfriend and a large number of cats. Matsi is American slang for Matsutake. I had wanted to see Matsutake growing in the tan oak forests of coastal Oregon, and he showed me some of his places where the stumps of once inspiring Douglas fir, lost through logging, provided encouraging habitat. Tan oak leaves covered the ground like a rug. It seemed impossible to find a mushroom emerging under that. But he showed me how to get down on the ground and to feel the leaves with my hands until I found a promising texture, a lump. We were looking for mushrooms by feel alone. For me, a new way to learn the forest. This method only works if you know the spots where Matsutake are likely to emerge. One needs to know the particular plants and fungi, not just in their generic types. This combination of intimate knowledge and feeling through the deft focuses my attention back on the here and now, the middle of things. We trust our eyes too much. I looked at the ground and thought, there's nothing here. But there was, as Matsuman found with his hands. Getting by without progress requires a good deal of feeling around with our hands. In this spirit, I let this chapter wander again through my research sites, recouping moments when I glimpsed the kind of boundary confusions that marks the edges of alienation, and thus perhaps latent commons. Muddling through with others is always in the middle of things. It does not properly conclude. Even as I reiterate key points, I hope a whiff of the adventure and process comes through. Matsuman assumed that name in his excitement for Matsutake mushrooms. He picks commercially, and as an amateur scientist, he studies with fervor. Tracking his patches, he has made an extraordinary record of Matsutake production over time in relationship to temperature and precipitation. Matsuman is also the name of his website, which is full of information about the mushrooms gathered from many sources. It has also become a space for discussion, particularly among white pickers and buyers. Matsuman's passion also brings him into dialogue with the Forest Service, which has used his services for its Matsutake research. Although Matsuman is devoted to his mushrooms, he does not assume they will be enough to support his needs. He has many other dreams and enterprises. When I visited, he showed me specks of gold he had panned from the river and a smoked Matsutake powder, which he was trying to sell as a spice. He was experimenting with growing medicinal fungi. He has collected firewood commercially. Matsuman is well aware that he has chosen forms of livelihood at the very edge of capitalism. He hopes never to work again for a wage and to find places to live in the woods that involve neither owning nor renting. He was the caretaker for a private mountain on which he lived. Later, he took an unpaid position as a campground host. Like many mushroom pickers, he has explored the limited spaces of capitalism, neither properly inside nor outside, where the inability of capitalist forms of discipline to fully capture the world is especially obvious. Matsuman navigates the possibilities as well as the problems of precarity. Precarity means not being able to plan. It also stimulates noticing, as one works with what is available. To live well with others, we need to use all our senses, even if it means feeling around in the dust. Matsuman's own words about noticing from his Matsutake website seem particularly apt. Who is Matsuman? He asks. Anyone who loves hunting, learning, understanding, protecting, educating others, and respects Matsutake mushroom and its habitat is Matsuman. Those of us who can't get enough understanding, constantly trying to determine what caused this or that to happen or not happen. We are not limited to nationality, gender, education, or age group. Anyone can be a Matsuman. Matsuman calls upon a latent commons of Matsutake lovers. What holds his imagined Matsu people together is the pleasure of noticing. Although I have devoted most of this book to living beings, it is useful to remember the dead. The dead, too, are part of social worlds. Lou Minvario nudged me in this direction when she showed me slides of Matsutake hyphae, the string-like cells of fungal bodies, gathering around bits of charcoal. Although Matsutake is known for its relationship with living trees, it can sometimes get nutrients from dead ones too, her research showed. This finding inspired her to begin a research project on Matsutake's good neighbors, both living and dead. Here, charcoal joins living trees, fungi, and soil microbes. She investigates how neighborliness, that is, social relations across differences of both vitality and species, is essential to good living.
Dr. Vario has thought a lot about neighborliness in this meaning. Mutuality across difference, for humans as well. Although she was born and first educated in China, her research has spanned many important sites of Matsutake science, and she has had to work across both hidden and overt national conventions in building neighborly Matsutake studies. She trained as a postdoctoral fellow in the influential laboratory of Kazuo Suzuki at the University of Tokyo. It was there that she first tested Matsutake's ability as a saprobe, an eater of the dead, saprobe maybe, an eater of the dead, which she hoped might lead to cultivation techniques. While the hyphae do grow on non-living materials, no one has yet seen a mushroom produced from mycelia without a live host. When she took a research position in China, she was thrilled by the chance to explore a different Matsutake landscape, yet frustrated at the lack of understanding of her research. A few years later, she married and followed her Finnish husband to his country, where she received funding to pursue the good neighbors, quote unquote, research through the Finnish Forest Research Institute. The study of neighborliness turns difference into a resource for collaboration. Imagining the interactions among roots, hyphae, not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, charcoal and bacteria, as well as among Chinese, Japanese, and Finnish scientists, is as good a way as any to refigure our understanding of survival as a collaborative project. Dr. Vario is lucky to have received research funding since, as an itinerant scientist, she has no institutional job security. The problem of living without a regular job is keener for those without advanced degrees. Consider Tia, who lives in the Finnish countryside above the Arctic Circle. On the way to her place, she showed me the corner where the unemployed hang out, drinking and waiting for a government check. Since cheap foods become available from the European Union, she complained, farming in northern Finland has closed down, and there are no other jobs. But she is enterprising. She co-founded a cooperative marketing outlet for local products, including jams made from local berries, wooden crafts, knitted scarves, and matsutake. She learned about matsutake from a traveling seminar that showed people how to identify and pick, and she is waiting for a good year to find more. She is also interested in the possibilities of matsutake tourism. Others in her area have trained themselves as nature guides, taking urban visitors into the woods for sports and hobbies, including mushroom picking. I had the chance to pick with one exuberant young man who promised he would be the king of matsutake next good year. He had learned mushrooms in a class. This was not traditional heritage. It represented a hope for him, an opening, an enthusiasm on which he would ride should a rising tide arrive. If the mushrooms came, he said, he would pick all night with lights. Matsutake were his dream, not just for getting by, but for getting by with verve.
Here again is that edge, both inside and outside capitalism. When a new commodity chain arrives, this man grasps it not through industrial discipline, but through personal talents, and as one of many precarious possibilities. On the one hand, this is capitalism. This is capitalism. Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. On the other hand, entrepreneurship is shaped by the rhythms of the Finnish countryside, with its mixture of silent deprivation and enthusiasms to improve. Any commodity that moves downstream along that chain will have to be disembedded from those connections in a messy process of translation. There's room here for imagining other worlds. Imagining other worlds was very much on the mind of the Satoyama advocates I met in Japan. I think particularly of Tanaka-san, who, like Tia, had put together a display center for local natural products and crafts. Unlike Tia, however, he was not concerned with making a living. He was comfortably retired, and this was his own land. His personal nature center is an attempt to build a culture of care for Satoyama landscapes and a gift to neighbors and visitors. In his town, he said, children had started going to school on a bus. Now that they did not walk to school, they hardly went outside. He brought children to his land to show them how to notice the forests and to play. We walked through the forest's special places, which he hoped the children too might discover. Here, 2 trees and of different species have grown together, knotted into a single trunk. Here, some crumbling Buddhist statues emerged from the brush when he cleaned it back. Here, a natural stone split in 2, reminding him of a woman. He took us to see the pines he was caring for, which otherwise would die from pine wilt disease, now rampant in this area. The treatment is expensive and his wife does not approve of the cost. But this is his commitment to the forest. Tanaka-san had built a small hut on the hillside, and he served tea to Shiho Satsuka and me while we sat looking down through the trees. The hut was full of curious things he had found in the forest, from lacquered conchs to unusual wild fruits. After a while, his brother-in-law, a forest worker, came by, and he told us stories of how the forest was once logged by lowering trees down wires. This was before the mountain was left to brushy regrowth. Tanaka-san's family had lived in the area for 5 generations, working in the mountains, but he became a public servant, serving at the post office. He used the lump sum from his retirement to buy the land. Despite the expense, he feels that working in the forest has a good influence on him. It makes him no money, but the forest's ability to inspire a visitor means a lot. Reinvigorating people's sense of nature, he said, was a world worth living. If Matsutake appeared, it would be an unexpected gift. Without meaning to, most of us learn to ignore the multi-species worlds around us. Projects for rebuilding curiosity, like Tanaka-san, are essential work for living with others. It helps, of course, to have adequate funds and time, but that is not the only way to be curious.
I first met Zhao Mei when she was 9, and her mother worked at a rural hotel where Michael Hathaway and I stayed in central Yunnan. She was brave, charming, and clever, and she loved to show us things. Her parents had a good relationship with one of the Matsutake bosses who owned the hotel, and her father sometimes went up into the mountains where they looked for mushrooms and picnicked. Once Michael and I went along, and Zhao Mei and I became distracted by tiny wild strawberries with a taste so intense that I closed my eyes when they went into my mouth. Zhao Mei then ran around gathering red-topped rusula, worthless but beautiful things. Zhao Mei's enthusiasm was contagious, and I loved them too. The next time I came, 2 years later, I was pleased to see she had not lost her sense of the deliciousness of life. She dragged Michael and me to see vegetable gardens along the road, and then further into the uncultivated verges where the wild plants of disturbed places grow. This was the latent commons of weeds, the vacant places of progress narratives, so often imagined as without value. Yet it was full of interest for us. We stuffed ourselves with berries from the brambles and searched for tiny mushrooms. We followed goat trails and examined flowers. She explained what everything was and how people used it. It was just the kind of curiosity Tanaka-san wanted to nurture in his town's children. Multi-species living depends on it. Without stories of progress, the world has become a terrifying place. The ruin glares at us with the horror of its abandonment. It's not easy to know how to make a life, much less avert planetary destruction. Luckily, there's still company, human and not human. We can still explore the overgrown verges of our blasted landscapes, the edges of capitalist discipline, scalability, and abandoned resource plantations. We can still catch the scent of the latent commons and the elusive autumn aroma.
I mean, do you want to go to the the next page, which has the photo for the next chapter. Cool. I'll just read the caption. Elusive Life, Oregon. Remembering Liki Nakashimura. Liki worked to keep Matsutake memory alive by encouraging old and young to follow him into the forest, looking for mushrooms. Spore Trail, the further adventures of a mushroom. One of the strangest projects of privatization and commodification in the early 21st century has been the movement to commoditize scholarship. Two versions have been surprisingly powerful. In Europe, administrators demand assessment exercises that reduce the work of scholars to a number, a sum total for a life of intellectual exchange. In the United States, scholars are asked to become entrepreneurs, producing ourselves as brands and seeking stardom from the very first days of our studies, when we know nothing. Both projects seem to me bizarre and suffocating. By privatizing what is necessarily collaborative work, these projects aim to strangle the life out of scholarship. Anyone who cares about ideas is forced, then, to create scenes that exceed or escape professionalization, that is, the surveillance techniques of privatization. This means designing research that requires playgroups and collaborative clusters, not congeries of individual calculating costs and benefits, but rather scholarship that emerges through its collaborations. Thinking through mushrooms, once again, can help. What if we imagined intellectual life as a peasant woodland, a source of many useful products emerging in unintentional design? The image calls upon its opposites. In assessment exercises, intellectual life is a plantation. In scholarly entrepreneurship, intellectual life is pure theft, the private appropriation of communal products. Neither is appealing. Consider, instead, the pleasures of the woodland. There are many useful products there, from berries and mushrooms to firewood, wild vegetables, medicinal herbs, and even timber. A forager can choose what to gather and can make use of the woodland's patches of unexpected bounty. But the woodland requires continuing work, not to make it a garden, but rather to keep it open and available for an array of species. Human coppicing, grazing, and fire maintain this architecture. Other species gather to make it their own. For intellectual work, this seems just right. Work in common creates the possibilities of particular feats of individual scholarship. To encourage the unknown potential of scholarly advances, like the unexpected bounty of a nest of mushrooms, requires sustaining the common work of the intellectual woodland. In this spirit, the Matsutake Worlds Research Group, the group that made my Matsutake research possible, has tried to build playful collaborations into our individual and collective work. This has not been simple. Pressures to privatize worm their way into every scholar's life. The tempo of collaboration is necessarily sporadic. But we have coppiced and burned, and our common intellectual woodlands flourishes. This means, too, that the intellectual equivalents of forest products have become available to each of us as gatherers. This book is just one harvest of those products. It is not the last. A woodland draws us again and again to its shifting treasures. If there is one mushroom, might there yet be more? This book opens a series of forays into our Matsutake woodland. There will be more, to China, to trace commerce, and to Japan, to follow cosmopolitan science. Consider the further adventures in these companion volumes.
In China, exuberance about global trade has transformed even the most remote villages, creating a rural China with transnational trade at its heart. Matsutake is the ideal vehicle to follow this development. Michael Hathaway's Emerging Matsutake Worlds traces the making of distinctive paths for global commerce in Yunnan. The book explores conflicting transnational pressures of conservation and commerce, as seen, for example, in the hard-to-explain presence of pesticides on Chinese mushrooms, showing how particular places, including Matsutake forests, develop within global connections. One surprising finding is the importance of ethnic entrepreneurship in both Tibetan and Yi areas. Pickers and village-based dealers work within ethnic circuits. Hathaway examines both the cosmopolitan character and the traditionalist preoccupations of the new ethnic aspirations promoted by Matsutake. Opening science and knowledge more generally to cosmopolitan history is an urgent task for scholars. Matsutake science in Japan turns out to be an ideal site for understanding the intersections between science and vernacular knowledge on the one hand, and international and local expertise on the other. Shiho Satsuka's The Charisma of a Wild Mushroom delves into such intersections to show how Japanese science is always already cosmopolitan and vernacular. She develops a concept of translation in which all knowledge is based in translation, rather than the immaculate Japanese knowledge of both Orientalist and nationalist imaginations. Matsutake science is translation all the way down. Her work moves beyond familiar Western epistemologies and ontologies to explore unexpected forms of personhood and thingness within the poorly differentiated human, non-human world Matsutake shows us. What kind of book is this that refuses to end? Like the Matsutake forest, each contingent gathering sponsors others in unexpected bounty. None of this would be possible without transgressing against the commodification of scholarship. Woodlands, too, offend the plantation and the strip miner, but it is hard to make woodlands fully disappear. Intellectual woodlands, too, ideas born in common play still beckon. The carrier bag theory of fiction, Ursula K. Le Guin argues, in the carrier bag theory of fiction, Ursula K. Le Guin argues that stories of hunting and killing have allowed readers to imagine that individual heroism is the point of a story. Instead, she proposes that storytelling might pick up diverse things of meaning and value and gather them together, like a forager rather than a hunter waiting for the big kill. In this kind of storytelling, stories should never end, but rather lead to further stories. In the intellectual woodlands, I have been trying to encourage adventures lead to more adventures, and treasures lead to further treasures. When gathering mushrooms, one is not enough. Finding the first encourages me to find more. But Le Guin says it with so much humor and spirit that I give her the last word.
Go on, say I, wandering off towards the wild oats, with ooh, ooh in the sling and little carrying the basket. You just go on telling how the mammoth fell on Boob and how Cain fell on Abel and how the bomb fell on Nagasaki and how the burning jelly fell on the villagers and how the missiles will fall on the evil empire and all the other steps in the ascent of man. If this is a human thing to do to put something you want, if it is a human thing to do to put something you want because it's useful, edible, or beautiful into a bag or a basket or a bit of rolled bark or leaf or a net woven of your own hair or what have you, and then take it home with you, home being another larger kind of pouch or bag, a container for people, then later you take it out and eat it or share it or store it up for winter in a solider container, or put it in the medicine bundle or the shrine or the museum, the holy place, the area that contains what is sacred, then the next day you probably do much the same again. If to do that is human, if that's what it takes, then I am a human being after all, fully, freely, gladly, for the first time.
Wow, we did it. Thanks everybody for reading. And before we go into our breakout groups, I will again just share the discussion questions and we'll come back together to discuss. The first one is, what do you think about these edges of capitalism that Matsumen Satayama revivalists, Finnish foragers, and Yunnan farmers live in? Some are beyond wage labor. Some seek to live in places that are neither owned or rented. And the second is Le Guin and Singh suggests that stories shouldn't end with protagonists conquering enemies, but instead should go on picking up pieces like a foray for mushrooms in an endless and contagious curiosity. Do you feel this contagious curiosity? And how can we inspire others? And with that, Jen, do you want to send us to our breakout rooms?
Yep, I'll send us there. We'll be there about 8 minutes and we'll have individual discussions and then we'll come back and share with everyone what we discussed. So it should send you there. Let's see. 1 second, let me fix. Okay, I think we're all, yep, it is working. everyone. Welcome back. We were right in the middle of a discussion in our room before we got pulled back into the main room, and I'm guessing that's the same case for some of you as well. So if you'd like to continue with what you're discussing, feel free to jump in.
I guess I was just in the middle of a sentence answering Marianne. We were talking about the difference between interest and curiosity, and my own sense of the difference in those two words is that an interest is that you want to know about it, whereas a curiosity is that it's somehow fitting into a paradigm that you have questions about in a way. Maybe curious just seems to imply a question, whereas interest just seems to imply a search or desire for knowledge, to know something. That's just what seems like the difference to me in those two words.
Thank you.
Well, towards the end of our conversation in our group, I just briefly touched on just thinking about people that work in the forest and pull things out of it that are not wood. Like if you're in a timber industry, you're full on in the capitalist system, but you know, not just mushrooms, but so many other products, you know, nuts, Brazil nuts. There's lots of things that get picked in the wild that end up on our tables, but the people that are doing it, I feel like, are often right at the edges of capitalism. Like they're just kind of scraping by, or they're making it work in one way or another. And then it's probably the middlemen that end up being the ones that, you know, that gather large quantities of it and then are able to really market it and turn it into a fully capitalist enterprise. So that was just something that I found interesting and commented on.
This is Laura. I was really appreciating the component around storytelling as foraging and as compared to a vertical end place with a specific protagonist, heroine, whatever individual, just examining all the different ways that storytelling is informing us and inspiring us. And that just really resonated with me in terms of the possibilities of creativity and really appreciating what's in front of you and taking that in as it's unfolding. It just felt beautiful and rich to me. And I was also noting in the breakout what a different, wonderful in a different way experience it is just listening and being on the phone. And I was having trouble with the Zoom, and I just surrendered, like, okay, I'm just going to practice listening today, and that's what I need to be doing. And it's been beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you for joining.
Today, so I was listening a lot about the description of people involved, the guy, the Matsuman, and I read some old Kerouac not so long ago, and I found some kind of relation with the characters that were described. People who are, you know, transient. They don't work for money. They are fire watchers. They are foragers or dumpster divers. And I was listening to this and seeing a lot of similarity with a lot of people who live in the edge, meaning by that they don't really contribute, but they don't deplete resources either. They kind of live off the grid, meaning by that not necessarily, you know, electricity, or just they don't pump energy and put more. They are just going with it. And these are the people you imagine, you know, going, looking for mushrooms And I noticed a few words. It was about the pleasure of noticing things. And I think that's the last chapter put the accent on that. And this is not something you can quantify or monetize, but just the joy of noticing things. And this is probably what sticks to me overall, the joy of noticing things. And the description of finding mushroom just with your hands without looking, because you feel things differently when you touch. And I thought that was very uplifting. So this is what I get from that.
Yeah, I really like the sentence. I'm just going to read it where Singh says, what holds his imagined Mansi people together is the pleasure of noticing. I really like that as well, Mish. And yeah, I also like wondered, like putting these things together, kind of like these edges and what Jaime was talking about. All of the people that work in the forest that aren't like lumber contractors or loggers, being at this edge, and like, you know, I kind of think like, well, okay, like what's the so what of it? And you know, more than just a observing of this like edge condition, I think it helps, like Singh was saying, like imagining other worlds. And I think that edge, even though it's, you know, not quote ideal in certain senses, that there's a lot of precarity, even though we all live in this global state of precarity now. I think it's an important thing to look at when we're trying to imagine other worlds, other things that are possible outside. I don't know if anybody else felt that.
Could you say that last part again?
Sure. That the point of, maybe the point of Singh revealing this thing is to help our imagination in imagining other worlds, and other worlds being a different one outside of the economic system setup that we have going on right now, that these foragers, these people living on the edge, are kind of in between. And so it's helpful in being able to imagine something different, because oftentimes the problem is not necessarily that we don't want to change, it's maybe that we don't know, we have no vision of other worlds that could be different. And so those worlds, people who live on the edge of the forest, neither owning nor renting, not really working for wage labor, is perhaps kind of helpful in imagining something else. I don't know if that made it worse.
No, that made it better. I really appreciate where you're going with that. And I think that is illustrative of the value of the stories that are shared in this work, because it is, I think, sometimes discouraging to look at something that's radically different, because it's like, great, like that sounds awesome. How do we get to there from here? But when you look at the edge of what currently exists and accept the inequalities and disparities that may characterize that system as an adequate starting place, because that is what we're working with, it gives you a more meaningful path forward if you look at the next step instead of, you know, the full evolution to something that's completely different, sort of, you know, said differently, the perfect being the enemy of the good. And so I think that these stories from the edge help show us a direction that means something from where we currently are.
That's a really interesting point, I think. The Matsutake collectors, or the people that search for Matsutake, are always recreating. I mean, they often go back to the same spots that they know have had mushrooms in the past, but they're always looking under new places or analyzing the formations to tell them whether there's going to be a bunch there or not. I don't remember the exact description. I don't know if you understand how that connects, but it has to do with being in the present and searching for the next direction instead of having it laid out for you, because life is not laid out for you.
I guess one thing that's really important to folks that are living at this edge and maybe kind of really connecting with Matsutake and kind of committing to that as a way of life in a sense, or as a way of gathering income too, is that they really do connect with the cycles of natures. And I know that we talked about in the book at some point about these cycles of abundance, right? That they come, but they're not always there. Like even in this chapter, it was like everybody was like, or at least the guy in Finland was like, I'm going to be there when the next big wave hits of like, and so people are connected to these kind of waves of abundance that nature kind of throws at us.
I'd like to pick up on the point that Laura made earlier about the Ursula Le Guin's story, because the edges of capitalism, the sort of, as you said in your question, the sort of places where people are not woven into the archetypes of capitalism. You're on the land because you own it or you rent it. That really ties in with the deconstruction of the story that Ursula Le Guin hinted at. And I think she's an incredibly brave artist and writer, Ursula Le Guin, because she's unafraid to push the boundaries of this thing called story that is so much related to a psychological crutch that human beings rely on, that we need a kind of a narrative that makes the world coherent to us. And it's a world that is never the same, incredibly fluid, always changing and completely mutable in different contexts. And so we've used the novel archetypes, the protagonist arc, the story as almost as a human need for psychological safety and comfort, and we don't examine that. And Ursula Le Guin deconstructs that beautifully. And I think Anna Singh is very clever to draw that parallel with the edges of capitalism, because what we've imbibed and accepted as a sort of a cultural, as a sort of a reality, as a creation of reality, is really a construct. And the true reality is that the world is full of edges, and the world is full of ragged patches of weeds that exist beyond the rubric of production and coherence. So that's one thing I wanted to draw on, that Laura's comment on the story made me think of.
Well, I'd love to share one last mushroom video with you guys. Here we go.
Those are the Matsutake?
No, no. Actually,
Okay.
I have on all my searches, I did not find any moving images of Matsutake, which makes sense
These
because
are fun.
they're so elusive, right?
Yeah.
But no, these are agaric, fly agaric.
Amanita muscaria.
Say that again, James.
Those red and white ones were Amanita muscaria.
Nice.
Are these all edible?
This one's really crazy. Not necessarily, no.
Yeah, not necessarily.
Whoa. It's like an egg inside.
No, it's really weird.
Whoa.
Is that an Earth star?
insect?
I have no idea.
Look at
Really
that
kinda
creature.
I kind of wanted the center of that starfish one to just puff into a big poop.
Oh,
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be an egg.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that's what they do at some point. I think
Like
they're
that.
puffballs.
It
Yeah,
seemed like a big sack. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Doesn't this mushroom set look like it's in a set design?
It's very possible.
It
Kind of.
does, but I can say that Amanita muscaria is also like Matsutake. It grows with living trees, so I'm sure they may be decorated, spice things up, but it's impossible to force
Yeah.
this.
No, I know, but it looks so it's so perfect.
Yeah, it looks immaculate.
Yeah, it does.
It looks like the light doesn't change through that whole mutation. Same kind
Yeah,
of.
Movie magic.
I think
Movie
you're right. There must be lights because otherwise you would see day and night. 'Cause that transition probably didn't happen over the course of like 12 hours. So it's probably doctored out. But they look nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And they look like a pizza. At the beginning, they look like coronavirus.
Right.
I thought pretzel, but
Yeah. Yeah, that's better. Maybe everything looks like coronavirus to me now. I don't know.
That's funny.
It's great to be with you all. I have to go. Thank you so much. Have a great
Thank
weekend.
you.
see you, hear you.
Hi, Marianne.
Hi, Marianne. Nice to have you.
Night.
Hi, May. Can you put the video somewhere, either on Instagram message or text it to me or email it or something?
Sure, I can send you the link.
But yeah, put the link in the chat if you can.
Oh, sure, I can do that now. But that won't help. But I have Laura's email, so I can email it to her.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Thank you.
Let me see here.
So Sylvia, what is this book that you've put in the chat by Charles Eisenstein? What's that about?
It's exactly what the title says. He's talking about the story that we're telling ourselves now about capitalism and scarcity and whatnot. And then what is the beautiful world that we know is possible? And he gets you to think about it. And he talks about activists. He had a book before that about sacred economics or something like that, where he talked about the gift economy and stuff. Anyway, I find it wonderful. I've read it multiple times and I recommend it.
Yes, I second that. He's amazing. He's a genius. I think he's in Chicago too, Lauren, FYI, for whatever future.
What's interesting is he doesn't like organize speeches, but people beg him to come and talk. And then he says, okay, but I don't have any money. And then they get him an airplane ticket and they find him someplace to sleep and they feed him. And I saw him that way in Pasadena. We fed him, Transition Pasadena fed him a meal and we got to hang out with him for like an hour. It was pretty fun.
That's cool. I'm definitely curious about the book. We already have a reading series already set up, but we're always looking for new things to read and explore together. So we'll put it in the in the curiosity pot.
There's also a series of videos that of him having like salon conversations with other folks that started at the Green Festivals a few years ago, and then they did a little bit more of it last year during COVID, I think. So if you just look him up, you might be able to find some fun videos too.
His name has come up in some other discussions I've been in, but I've just never had the opportunity to Google him. Does anyone here know a little bit about this author's background and his motivations and his sort of academic lineage?
He's a philosopher.
Yeah, I think I'm not going to read it because it's a lot, but the Wikipedia on him seems to give a pretty good synopsis of his backgrounds. But it just says environmentalism, economics, spirituality, and philosophy. Jen, do you have any like statement prepared for what the next reading series is on? You're muted, by the way.
Sorry about that. Olive was making noise, so I didn't want that to distract everybody. We will be announcing in an Eventbrite coming next week, I believe, the full discussion and curriculum.
When is it supposed to start?
It will be starting it'll be starting Thursdays now. So mark that on your calendars. We will no longer be doing Friday nights. It'll be Thursday nights at 5:30,
Yay.
starting July 8th.
And
So we'll have 1 week, I think it's 1 week off, and then we'll reconvene.
And I can just say, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name. Jaime, you might want to correct me, but is it Fritkhoff? Is that how you say his name? Fritkhoff?
That's a really good, that's
Fritjof is kind of my imagination of how it's said.
Okay. Fritjof Capra, who did the Tao of Physics. It'll be kind of, there's a lot of other supplementary text, but it kind of follows one of his newer works, the Systems View of Living Systems. Or wait, was that the
Systems
title?
View of Life.
Yeah, it
Systems
is.
View of Life. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So it'll be kind of based around that.
And an introduction to systems thinking and illustrated in 4 dimensions: biological, cognitive, social, and ecological, and the patterns and networks and relationships between all those dimensions. So that'll be his book with other, as James said, other supplemental information, text that will go along with it.
It's a really light fare.
Well, I will transition into, I thought I would be done tonight with this, but when it really comes down to it, it's the little details that take the longest. And these were easy, but these little tiny things, I mean,
Wait, hold it there.
Okay, hold on. Let me go closer.
It's so amazing. I
No,
can't
thank
really see
you.
the stitches. Maybe you're too close or something.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know. It's a
That's
light. or something.
awesome.
It's so incredible.
Thank you. It's been so much fun doing this one, I will tell you. The one thing I will say, if anybody has this pattern and they're working on it, originally, like these little dots, I was kind of doing like a stitch around, and it really is almost like you have to think of it like a life vest, like a circular one where you go around this way instead of sewing it around this way, which takes longer, but it looks better. I have to redo some now. But I won't be done like I thought.
You'll have 2 weeks.
Yes, yes.
Is there a new set of drawings or?
We are working on another set. I
Okay,
cannot reveal.
I won't blow the lid on it. Okay. keep your secrets. I'll ask Mish in private.
There's always something good.
Thank you so much.
I'm gonna say good night. Good night, everybody.
Roxanne, we'll see you
Hi,
later.
Roxanne. Also, I think Alex is leaving too.
Me too, Laura signing off. This has been a wonderful series. It's just really, really, thank you all for your magnificence. Have a great weekend.
Bye, Laura.
You too.
Thank you for joining.
I'm going to sign off as well. Have a great evening. I'll see you in 2 weeks then.
Sounds good. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for reading and participating.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, it seems like everybody's abandoning ship. So I can read the question to the 6 of us, the final one,
Do
before
it.
we sign off. Let's just do
Yeah.
it.
Let's do it.
Okay, we'll fire off. What are the treasures that you pick along the way? What are the adventures that lead to further adventures? What are the figurative mushrooms, should say you pick, that spur you to pick more?
Beautiful.
So,
Thanks, James.
of course, thank you all for the support and for the last 10 weeks.
It's been a wonderful journey and it's definitely opened my eyes.
I'm glad. It's a cool book. It's really a great book. Cool. Well, I guess with that, let's all eat or just
Yeah.
go enjoy your weekend. Cool.
All righty. Well, we'll see you Thursday, July 8th.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Sylvia.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.